Hey guys, we're going to talk about BCDA. It's really the only ticker I traded today. If you want to see my chart, here's my chart. Made one trade. Um, I'll show you the book map read I made on this trade over here. I was not interested in shorting in the pre-market. I made a few covers. I'll explain why, and then I'm holding like about 20. I'm only holding 25% of the stock right now. So anyway, we'll talk about the pre-market, the book map. So I wasn't even on during this parabolic, but I saw when I came online, I saw that volume was massive, right? So I really don't consider this a quick pre-market pop because of that quick pre-market pops tend to happen on low floats. This is not a low float. First of all, it's a thick penny runner. So I tend to separate penny runners and 1 million, 2 million flow stocks into their own categories. Penny runners this year have just been super strong. It's like it's inherently a bullish factor. Look at plays like TENX or JAN or INBS this week. They're like just so much strength. The penny runners have so much momentum compared to a lot of low floaters that are above $1, above $2. And I'm seeing the volume on this, man. This is just trading half a million, half a million, half a million. I'm like, dude, this is big volume, right? And it's a penny runner. And something I always talk about in my recently in my videos is, hey, in strong markets, when you get down only, right? This is a 20-25% instant pullback from high days. It's actually potentially bullish because it creates all this empty space up here. And the order book tends to be very empty to the upside when you have down only after a big push, right? So a lot of shorts are shorting, $1 resistance or adding that type of thing. And on really strong stocks with really big volume, this empty space could get attacked. So I saw it when it was down here in the 80s. I was like, well, I'm not even, I don't short penny names in general. And I just considered this to be really bullish. I was like, all right, I just told my Discord, which information down below, I'm like, hey, this is really big volume. Gonna keep an eye on it. And then I saw the push the one, and I told them right away, I was like, oh man, I saw this $1 high day clear out in this pullback. I was like, shorts are going to be absolutely smacking this, dude. They're going to see the parabolic from the morning. They're going to see this like potential high day clear out that looks weak, and they're just going to be smacking and smacking. But I'm looking at the volume. I'm like, dude, volume is consistent. It's picking up. It's increasing. It's a penny runner. It's already doing this very bullish price action of these deep pullbacks into short squeezes. I'm like, there's a lot of bullish factors adding up, and not to mention the book. The book on these penny runners, on these thicker float names, is so different than low floats. Low floats, low floats like PXMD is your more standard low float type price action, okay? Like the way low floats are in the order book is that outside of a few key levels, like here's a squeeze at the top. So here's the final high day squeeze before it pulled. You'll notice that there's like a few bids stacked at random locations, but there's a lot of empty space, and this empty space tends to have like 0 orders or like 100 orders. Like there'll be 100 orders at this level, 100 orders at like 200, 300, at all these like. So you'll have these in low floats, these tickers that are usually controlled by one player. You'll get completely empty books between 4 and 420. This is a 5% range where there's no orders, which is why here it just teleports. It just teleports straight up because there's no orders on the book, so it just teleports like from, they stack the bid where they want. Big bid comes in, it initiates 5% straight up through the order book, hits the next level, maybe takes that level out and does something else, that type of thing. But BCDX, totally different, man. Totally in the pre-market at market open on the fade. Totally different book, and you have to really view it differently. If we look down here on this push, you'll start to notice that there's bids everywhere. Not only the bids, some of these bids are like 20,000, 10,000. Like look, 10, 14, 13, 15, 20, 7, 6, 20. Like there's bids at every single penny. And not only the bids are at every penny, but the volume is increasing. It's riding the Momo MAs, the 1 minute 9, 1 minute 20. increasing volume, super consistent, tons and tons of bids. So I didn't take a single short on any of this because I'm like, well, what's the thesis, man? This is classic bullish price action. It's accumulation. It's pushing. There's tons of bids. There's no pattern up here. There's no pattern anywhere. The only pattern there really was, and this is a very almost like low floaty pattern, was here. This was the most. I didn't take this because I was just away from market open, but this was the most interesting. They swiped support, they pushed it, and they flashed a 100,000 share bid at 144, and then 145, 146 just didn't get eaten through at all. So 145, there's a big bid that showed up, but 145, 146 refused to push, right? And and this thing has been up only up to this point. Long as you're gonna think it's still gonna be up only, especially with that big bid. And that entire 100,000 share bid got sold into in one block. There was one 100,000 share block that got sold into, and then it did something also very, very bullish. It got walked down into market open, and on really strong stocks, walk downs in the open can be really strong. And just like PXMD, this is the exact same pattern as my PXMD long. Even though I did not long this, I should have longed this. A few people in my room did long this in the low 120s down here. But this is the same market open pattern as PXMD, right? You walk it down with lower highs, lower lows in the market open. You fake out retail at 9:30, right? There's not a lot of bids. It sells through the bids, and then you throw up some big stacks at the bottom, right? So there's a bunch of big bids waiting down here, right? And then you get the retail long fake out. You pull down, swipe support, throw up a bunch of huge bids, bunch of empty space to the upside, and then up halt squeeze, right? This is the exact same thing PXMD did. BCDA also doing it here. And I'm like, man, that's like insanely bull. And this is, up halting right under high day. That has potential to squeeze, just like PXMD, to squeeze really, really high. Doesn't mean it's going to, but it has that potential. So I was like, all right, let me wait to see what happens out of the unhalt. And then it unhalts and insta downhalts, and I'm like, okay. What you have to understand about downhalts at the top is that a lot of times the downhalts at the top can be short traps. Look at my INVO long. I longed INVO out of a downhalt, and we got another uphalt short squeeze, right? And I made, 30 cents on that. And I'm like, okay, like, this is trading tons of volume, tons of momentum. Let me see what happens after the unhaul, right? And I'm not like looking to chase any of these candles. I'm just waiting for some type of structure, and I'm waiting to see what the book looks like, right? So we had the unhaul, and then the first thing I noticed on the unhaul is that they start stacking. So it pulls down and it starts consolidating, right? This is right here. This is this consolidation right here. And I'm like, all right, well, INVO had a bunch of bids at the bottom and no ass to the upside. That's why I went long, right? I saw the bids hold. I saw them restack the bids, and then I saw empty space at upside. I went long, uphalt short squeeze, nice long. This, however, not a lot of bids. There's still, like I said, 10,000, 12,000, 10,000, 10,000. But in terms of like the big bids, like these 50, 60, 70,000s, they're all up here. So we kind of have a flip where it's like, I see the ask to the upside get stacked really, really heavy, and I'm not seeing a lot of bids. And I'm like, all right, well, maybe these offers are going to get eaten through. They're really, they're if you just see the color difference, they're so much thicker. But I'm really waiting for some type of move. I don't want to just short into these offers in case it is some type of short trap and it's going to keep squeezing. I want some type of additional confirmation. So right here, we get something really interesting. We get a quick dump, breaks these support levels, empty space, and then instant market orders up. And I'm like, all right, man, maybe this is going to squeeze these, 143 level, 145. Maybe it's going to squeeze 150, keep pushing. Or maybe a long trap's going to happen. Like, I know there's offers up here, right? So I see this reclaim. I know there's offers up here. I'm like, is it going to start eating through these offers? Like, what's going to happen? I'm just trying to make a read. And then I notice up here, we zoom in, that not only does it start stalling, but they start stacking new offers. And that is a huge bearish sign for me, because it's like, I know there's all these offers up higher, and some of the best long traps, and I have like tons of examples in my Discord about this, tons and tons and tons of examples in my Discord of what do you call it? Of you get some type of bullish action that you know retail is going to be slapping, top of the range, 5 minute nine, you know, support crack, reclaim, possible squeeze. They're going to be slapping, and you get new. I love to see not only the ask hold, but even newer asks show up. And if we zoom out, we see there's not on this push. There's not a lot of bids down here, and that's ideal. New ask to the right, new ask, lack of bid follow up. You know, retail pattern at the top, it's really, really good. And then I have a bunch of asks I can risk. It's like I know that if I go short here, and not only has to eat through these new asks, but all these levels up here, I can have tight risk. I can get in the 130s, which is what I did. And then it went down, and I was like, great. Because sometimes these up halts into a high day clear out, they do work sometimes. And this one was up like 300%. So the higher and higher something gets, if I saw a high day clear out into a downhaul and it was only up say 50%, and I know it's like a rigged low float, and again, this isn't even a low floater, but if it's a possible rigged low float stock, it's only up a little bit, it's trading millions of shares per minute, like I think that has greater potential than something that's opening near the top of its top of the range. That's a bearish factor. It's up 300%, squeezed all the $1 shorts. Like there's like the higher something goes like this, the more bearish bias I tend to get. So I was willing to read this price action on the book as bearish, and I just went in. But as you see to the downside, you can see these numbers on the right here. These are all if you add all the bids up, these are what all the bids are added up to this price. So up to $1, there's 350,000 shares. In reality, there's a lot more because TOS Thinkorswim's Bookmap doesn't show all the orders, and so I know this is going to be really thick. I was like, this is going to be a thick, choppy stock. There's a bunch of orders up high. There's a bunch of orders down low. On these, once the morning volatility is over, on these thicker names, it gets really grindy, which is normal. Which is a normal thing for things to get really grindy. But besides that, we got another interesting thing was this push. We get this high volume VWAP bounce, right? This is another retail long pattern, by the way. High volume VWAP bounce, big volume comes in off VWAP. Retail longs love to see VWAP hold, right? It's a very common support level. Very common support level for retail longs to buy. And what do we get? Here's the bounce, right? And what do we see? We see, a bid initially show up, bid gets pulled. We see a pullback. There's one decent bid, but not much else. So there's really just one guy here kind of holding this up. It bounces, and on potential long traps, I always like to see these, like here's the first push. I like to see the second push, because the second push is really important, because second pushes are when retail longs who didn't buy down here, which is a lot of them didn't. Most traders, they wait for the volume to come in and then they chase later, right? It's like they wait for too much confirmation and then they try to chase the next candle. That's why I like the second pushes. And we see the same thing. Second push, big, like look how red this gets. Big ass, like on the second push, big ass starts coming in. That wasn't like, it was like, 10, 15,000 shares over here becomes 40,000 shares over here. Doesn't even get tested. There's really just this one guy on the bid, but besides that, there's nothing. There's not a whole lot until this 115 level, which is why by the way, this is why it comes down to 115 here. And I was already short, but some people in my room took this right here. They took this right here in the 130s. They saw the ask, lack of bid support, really, really nice. Big, aggressive VWAP push, high volume. Look how high this volume is. And this ends up being a great little secondary entry. It is farther away from high day, so you do carry more risk. I tend to get more scalpy the more far away I get from high day. My average was a little higher, in the high 130s. But if you're trying to get into like the very low 130s, you kind of you're opening yourself up to some type of some type of squeeze later in the day. Um, and then what I actually did is started flagging, right? Here's a midday flag. I'm like, all right, it's midday flagging. Um, but what I learned about midday flags is overall is very simple. Like, because I have a lot of long friends who are long these type of midday flags, um, and the concept's very simple. The higher something goes and the more something squeezes to the upside, the less likely these midday flag, the less likely long patterns, even midday long patterns, are to work. The higher something goes, the higher something squeezes. Especially like this was in the pre-market, it's such a massive short trap squeeze, and then we had a market open squeeze too. So getting really extended. We're getting into multiple short squeeze territory, and you're starting to get like this clean flag that we don't even get like a big long trappy type of 1.35. In the low floats, if this is a low float stock, this would push to 1.35 and then it would fall 20% in 5 minutes. You know what I mean? Like that's what would happen in low floats. On these thicker names, it just runs out of liquidity and this flag never breaks out and it just falls to the downside. Now I was getting aggressive. Usually on low floats I would hold more for longer, but the reason I was kind of taking a lot of profits, I took some under VWAP on this consolidation, and then I just took some um, off this $1 bounce down here in the low ones. And the reason I did that is just because I know, looking at the book on this fade, it's a similar concept. Like on low floats, I can have more confidence in a fade because I know once on low floats, once key levels get broken, say 113 gets broken, a lot of times there'll be no orders between like 115 and 1, right? But here, there's actually orders you can see farther down here. There's like 20, 30,000. In reality, there's more. There's like 40, 50,000 shares at every penny. So that means somebody's, even though it's fading, somebody is buying all those shares, right? It's really not, I really didn't approach this as like a low float um, type of trade, and I was a little worried that this buyer who was actually buying all these shares down here would rotate it back up and maybe do some type of push, or maybe it will consolidate for a day and not really fade and that type of thing. So like I got really aggressive with my covers, and I'm still holding a little bit more. I held through this bounce in the end of the day. I'm really only holding 25%. I haven't covered. I'll see what happens in the after hours, see what happens. Hopefully it has weak after hours or just stays down here in the low ones, or even if it wants to go sub one, that'd be great. And yeah, so BCDA. So this is a thicker name, thicker order book. Strong. This is classic strong pre-market action. You really want to remember. Uh, big consistent volume on the book. You could just see bids, 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 all the way up. We really didn't start getting it like low floating manipulation until up here. And then yeah, the PXMD pattern, like your little walk down, your lower highs into market open. You deep swipe support, you throw a bunch of bids up down here, then you squeeze through the empty space. And market open always, on the thicker float names, you could get more volatility like this because market open just is more volatile. Um, you know, on names like even like GME and AMC back in the day, those were not low float stocks, but they traded like low float stocks because of the volatility. So when the volatility and the volume's there, you can start getting, which just goes to show that low flow patterns are just volatility patterns. That's all they are. So it's just low floats are inherently volatile, right? Because of the order book, because of the manipulation. But these thicker float names can have a lot more support, a lot more bids. But you do get cleaner action, price action towards market open. And yeah, this is Heidi clear out down halt, potentially bullish, but the Bookmap at the top really showed us some clear signals, especially on this little reclaim and push right here. You love to see new offers come in, lack of bid support, and then yeah, go straight down. So pretty nice, very what's great about these is if you really do wait for like the ideal, because you get short earlier if you want to take the trade over here in the 140s before this type of move happens, because you see that there's a lack of bid support and there's a bunch of ass down here, you could take that trade. But I do like to wait for some type of initiation. I love to see, some type of bullish push, and I like to see new asks start to show up, right? Those can be really A plus, right? Those can give you a lot of confidence. So, uh, yeah, and then PXMD and ADTX, I often miss those straight down parabolics. I tend to trade with too tight of a risk. So whenever I trade, you know, charts like this, I have a hard time entering because I think you just have to accept wider risk on these, which often means either scaling in or reducing your size and that type of thing. Because you do open yourself up to, there are times where you get these up halts into 30% pullbacks into another, 50% squeeze. You open yourself up to that type of thing. So, um, I just tend to be not that good at them, and I tend to miss. The thing is, they can really be straight up, straight down. So yeah, I just miss these types of trades a lot. So I know it seems like I'm in a lot of tickers, but in reality, I miss a lot. So, anyways, BCDA, interesting ticker. Strong pre-market action. Uh, Definitely study that because a big part of shorting is really learning what not to trade. Learning what not to trade is more important than learning what to trade. um, because you're much more likely to make wrong reads than correct reads. So uh, yeah, just volume, bid support, quick pullbacks from high day, tons of empty space. These are all bullish. Um, High volume accumulation, increasing volume, consistent volume. These are bullish. So penny runners are bullish. So yeah, BCDA. Hope that was good. See you guys.